The Great Galactic Council met once every 10 years on the ring station called Vantor Prime. It was a massive structure built long ago, floating between two dead stars. Thousands of species sent their leaders there to talk about laws, trade, and war. It was the closest thing the galaxy had to a single government, even if every species inside it still fought for its own gain. On this day, the Council was talking about a small blue planet called Earth. Earth was not a member of the Galactic Council. It had been found only 40 years ago by a scout ship from the Drenari Empire, a species of tall, gray-skinned beings who prided themselves on their fleets and their old traditions of conquest. Since then, a few ambassadors had visited Earth, a few trade deals had been signed, and a few reports had been filed. But nobody in the galaxy really understood what humans were. Counselor Threx Alaman, an old Drenari with silver eyes, stood at the center of the chamber. Behind him, a large screen showed images of Earth, cities, oceans, forests, and crowds of small, soft-skinned humans walking through streets. "We have studied this world for 4 decades, Threx said, his voice deep and slow. Humanity has no standing fleet, larger than a handful of old defense satellites. They have no shielded warships. Their largest weapons are missiles that barely leave their own atmosphere. Their military spending, compared to other worlds their size, is almost nothing." A holographic chart appeared next to him. It showed Earth ranked far below hundreds of other planets, in something called the Military Readiness Index. The number next to Earth's name was close to 0. "By every measure we have," Threx continued, "Earth is undefended. If any hostile power wished to take this world, there would be little standing in their way." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Delegates from 100 different species whispered to each other. Some were curious. Some were already thinking about resources. Earth, after all, was rich in water, in rare metals, and in something the galaxy valued highly, a large, healthy population that could be used for labor, or worse. In the back of the chamber, a smaller alien, named Patoran Vey, sat quietly. He was a Quess, a species known across the galaxy for being careful thinkers and skilled traders. He was also, unlike most people in that room, someone who had actually lived among humans for the past 6 years. Patoran raised his hand. "Counselor Threx," Patoran said, standing. "May I ask something?" Threx nodded, though his eyes showed he was not thrilled to be interrupted. "You said Earth has no large fleet," Patoran said. "But do we actually know why? Have any of our surveys gone deep enough? I have lived on Earth. I have spoken with their scientists and their leaders. There are things about that planet that do not add up." "Such as?" Threx asked, his tone slightly mocking. "Such as their industry," Patoran said. "Earth produces more raw steel, more concrete, and more electronics than almost any planet of similar size in this council. Where does it go? Their cities are not that much bigger than they were 20 years ago. Their reported military spending is small, yes, but their industrial output does not match a peaceful, sleepy world. Something is being built. I do not know what, but something." A few delegates chuckled. Threx raised a hand, silencing the room. "Patoran Vey," Threx said, "you have always had strange theories about the humans. I remember when you argued they were secretly building spacecraft in their oceans." A wave of laughter rolled through the chamber. Patoran did not laugh. "I was wrong about the oceans," he admitted. "But I was not wrong that they were hiding something. We found the shipyards on their moon 2 years later, remember?" The room went quiet for a moment. It was true. 3 years ago, a Drenari scout had discovered a modest human base on the far side of the moon. Nothing large, just a small research station with a single unfinished spacecraft inside. It had embarrassed the humans when it was found, and the human government had explained it as a private scientific project, unrelated to the military. The council had accepted this explanation and moved on. "That was a research post," Threx said, "not a fleet." "Perhaps," Patoran said. "Or perhaps it was one piece of something larger, and we only saw the piece they wanted us to see." Threx waved a hand, dismissing the idea. "This is exactly the kind of thinking that wastes council time. We have facts. Earth has no visible fleet. Earth has minimal defense infrastructure. Earth is, by every honest measurement, defenseless. This is not an opinion. It is a conclusion based on years of observation." The council voted soon after. The final classification for Earth was recorded in the Galactic Registry. Species designation, human. Threat level, minimal. Defense capability, none confirmed. Patoran Vey left the chamber troubled. He was the only person in that room who had actually walked on Earth's soil, eaten human food, and sat across a table from human leaders. And something about the vote bothered him deeply. Humans, in his experience, were not a people who did nothing. They built, they planned. They argued about everything, yes, but underneath the noise, they moved fast and thought long-term. A species like that did not simply sit still for 40 years, while stronger neighbors circled closer. He did not know it yet, but his instincts were about to be proven right, in a way that would shake the entire galaxy. 6 light-years away, in a different part of the galaxy, a fleet commander named Raxus Kell stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Talon of Skor. He was a Kaldrith, a species built like walking predators, tall, muscled, with sharp teeth and eyes made for hunting in low light. The Kaldrith Dominion was one of the more aggressive powers near the edge of Council space. They followed the Council's laws only when it suited them, and they had a long history of taking territory from weaker species under the excuse of protection or resource management. Raxus had just received the Council's new classification report on Earth. He read it twice, his sharp teeth curling into something like a smile. Minimal threat level, he said to his second-in-command, a smaller Kaldrith named Vesa. No confirmed defense capability. Do you understand what this means, Vesa? Vesa tilted her head. It means Earth would be an easy target. It means Earth is undefended, Raxus said, standing from his chair. A whole planet, rich in resources, rich in population, and the Council itself has told the entire galaxy that no one is guarding it. The Council would not approve of an invasion, Vesa said carefully. Earth may not be a member, but taking a planet by force still breaks several treaties. Raxus waved this away. The Council approves of many things quietly, as long as no one makes too much noise about it. We will not call it an invasion. We will call it a resource acquisition mission. We will offer the humans a protectorate agreement, if they refuse. And species that weak, rarely have the will to refuse for long. We will take what we need by force. The Council will file a complaint, nothing more. This is how it has always worked. He was not entirely wrong. The Kaldrith Dominion had done this before, on 3 smaller worlds near their border. Each time the Council had voted, argued, passed a resolution condemning the action, and done nothing else. Species without a fleet had no leverage. And Earth, according to the Council's own numbers, had no fleet at all. Prepare the fleet, Raxus ordered. I want 12 warships ready within the week. We will not send our entire strength. There is no need to waste resources on a planet with no defense. 12 ships will be more than enough to make our point. Vesa hesitated. Commander, if I may, should we not send scouts first? Confirm the Council's report ourselves? Raxus turned to her, amused. Vesa, the Council spent 40 years studying this world. Do you think we will learn something they missed in a few days of scouting? It has happened before, Vesa said quietly. Raxus considered this for a moment, then shrugged. Fine. Send 2 scout ships ahead. Quietly. If they find anything unusual, we adjust. If not, we proceed as planned. Either way, humanity's hangars will soon belong to us. On Earth, in a building that did not appear on any public map, a woman named General Mara Ilyanova sat in a private office, watching a live feed from a satellite far above the planet. The feed showed 2 small ships entering the outer edge of the solar system, moving slowly, clearly trying to avoid detection. She was not surprised. She had been expecting something like this for years. Her aide, a younger officer named Captain Devon Cho, stood beside her. Ma'am, the Council's registry update went out 3 days ago. Threat level, minimal. Defense capability, none confirmed. It's already causing chatter across a dozen alien trade networks. Several of them are talking about Earth like it's an open buffet. That was the point, Mara said quietly. Devon frowned. Ma'am? 40 years, Devon, Mara said, still watching the screen. 40 years since first contact. 40 years of showing the galaxy exactly what we wanted them to see. A quiet, backward little planet, poking around in space with old rockets and toy satellites. 40 years of pouring almost every real resource we had into projects no alien survey ever managed to find. She reached over and tapped a button. The screen changed. Instead of the 2 scout ships above, it now showed a long tunnel carved deep into a mountain range, in a location that was, officially, an empty stretch of protected wilderness. Inside the tunnel were dozens of massive hangar doors, each one large enough to swallow a skyscraper. Behind those doors, according to the readouts on the side of the screen, sat something that had never once appeared in any alien scan, any diplomatic report, or any council registry. "They think we're helpless," Mara said. "They think our biggest achievement is a broken research base on the moon. And every single one of them, from the smallest trade delegate to their biggest military power, is about to learn just how wrong they've been." Devon stared at the screen for a long moment. "How many ships do we have ready, ma'am?" Mara allowed herself a small, tired smile. "Enough," she said. "Let's just say the Council's registry is going to need a very large update soon." Far above, the 2 scout ships continued drifting closer to Earth, their sensors sweeping over an ocean, a stretch of farmland, and finally, without ever realizing what lay beneath it, the outer edge of a quiet mountain range that held one of the greatest secrets in the galaxy. Neither ship reported anything unusual. Neither ship saw the hangar doors buried deep in the rock, sealed under decades of careful concealment, camouflage fields, and old-fashioned human stubbornness. As far as their instruments could tell, Earth truly was exactly what the Council said it was. Undefended, unprepared, an easy target. Rax's scouts turned back toward the Caldrith fleet, their reports confirming everything the Council had claimed. 12 warships began their final preparations, their crews already dreaming of an easy victory and a rich new world to claim. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The Caldrith fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, just past the orbit of the outermost planet. 12 warships appeared in the black of space like a row of dark blades, their hulls built for war, their weapons ready. Commander Raxus Kell stood on the bridge of the Talon of Skor, watching the small blue dot on the main screen that marked their destination. "Distance to Earth?" he asked. 6 hours at current speed, Commander," Vesa answered from her station. Raxus nodded slowly. 6 hours, until his fleet would be close enough to send a formal message to the human government. 6 hours, until the so-called defenseless planet would learn who its new masters were. "Send the standard opening broadcast once we are within range," Raxus said. "Tell them who we are, tell them what we offer. Give them the chance to submit peacefully. It will save us both time." "And if they refuse?" Vesa asked. Raxus smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Then we remind them why refusing is a mistake." The fleet moved closer, passing the outer planets one by one. Sensors swept the system constantly, watching for any sign of danger. They found nothing. No warships, no defense platforms, no hidden fleets waiting in ambush. Just as the Council's report had promised, the system appeared calm and undefended. What the sensors could not see, however, was something far below the surface of Earth's moon, and far beneath the crust of Earth itself, in places no alien scan had ever managed to reach. Deep inside the Nevada mountain base, General Mara Ilyanova sat in the command center, watching the same fleet approach on a screen far more detailed than anything the Caldrith possessed. Human sensor technology, hidden from the galaxy for decades, was quietly tracking every ship, every engine flare, every subtle shift in their formation. 12 warships, said Captain Devon Cho, reading from a datapad. Caldrith Dominion markings, standard heavy cruiser class, according to our records from the Q's trade reports. Shields, plasma cannons, and troop transport bays. "Troop transports," Mara repeated. "They're not just here to threaten us. They're planning to land forces." "Looks that way, ma'am." Mara studied the screen for a long moment. She had spent the better part of her career preparing for exactly this moment, and yet now that it was finally happening, she felt the same tight feeling in her chest that every soldier feels before a real fight begins. "Get me the Joint Command," she said. "All branches, all commanders, it's time." Within minutes, faces appeared on screens around the room. Leaders from a dozen different countries, all part of a secret alliance, formed decades earlier, called the Unified Earth Defense Authority, or UEDA. It had been built quietly, piece by piece, after the very first contact with an alien species 40 years ago. Governments that once distrusted each other had come together, driven by a simple and uncomfortable truth. Humanity was now living in a galaxy full of species that were, in many cases, far stronger and far older. If Earth ever wanted to survive, it would need to prepare in secret, and prepare well. "This is not a drill," Mara said to the assembled leaders. "A Kaldreth fleet, 12 warships, is currently 6 hours from Earth. Scout reports and their fleet composition suggest a full-scale takeover attempt, likely disguised as a protectorate offer. We believe they intend to use force if we refuse." A representative from one of the larger member nations leaned forward. "Are we activating threshold protocol?" Mara did not hesitate. "Yes. Full activation. All hangars, all fleets, all defense stations. It's time to show the galaxy exactly what we've been building." Threshold Protocol was the name given, many years ago, to Earth's true defense plan. It was born out of a single hard lesson learned during humanity's earliest years of contact with the galaxy. In the very first years after first contact, Earth's governments had been eager, even desperate, to be seen as capable and modern. They had shown off their best fighter jets, their newest satellites, their most advanced research labs, hoping to earn respect from the older, more powerful species around them. It had almost gotten them killed. A minor pirate group, made up of species far weaker than the Kaldreth, had studied Earth's early technology demonstrations and concluded, correctly, that Earth's military strength was still primitive compared to galactic standards. They had launched a small raid on an orbital research station, expecting no resistance. Human forces barely managed to fight them off, losing several lives in the process, and only survived because the pirates were poorly organized and lightly armed. That single event changed everything. Earth's leaders realized a painful truth: showing strength before you actually have it only invites attack. Showing weakness, when you are still weak, invites attack even faster. The only safe path was to appear weak, while secretly building real strength, and to keep that strength hidden until the day it was truly needed. From that point on, every major human power agreed, in complete secrecy, to slow down all public displays of technology. Space programs were quietly redirected. Military budgets that once made headlines were hidden inside other government spending, buried under names like infrastructure development or scientific research. Entire mountain ranges, ocean trenches, and stretches of empty desert were converted into massive underground shipyards, built using methods and materials most of the galaxy had never even considered, simply because Earth's engineers were forced to be creative with limited resources and limited time. It took decades, it took sacrifice. Entire generations of scientists and workers spent their careers building something they knew they might never get to use, all in the hope that when the day finally came, Earth would not be caught helpless. That day had arrived. Far above the Nevada base, deep space sensors detected the Kaldreth fleet's opening transmission. It arrived exactly on schedule, 6 hours after the fleet's arrival, broadcast in a translated human language pulled from old data collected during early diplomatic visits. The message played across every screen in the command center. "This is Fleet Commander Raxus Kell of the Kaldreth Dominion, speaking on behalf of the Dominion Council. Your world has been classified by the Great Galactic Council as undefended and unprotected. Under Dominion law, unclaimed and undefended territory may be brought under Dominion protection for the mutual benefit of both parties. We offer you the opportunity to accept peaceful integration into the Dominion. Your leadership will be permitted to remain in a ceremonial role. Your resources and population will be managed under Dominion authority. You have 1 hour to respond. Refusal will be treated as resistance, and resistance will be handled accordingly." The room was silent after the message ended. "Ceremonial role," Devon muttered. "They want to turn our governments into puppets and take everything else." "That's the pattern," Mara said. "It's worked for them before. On smaller, weaker worlds. They count on fear, and they count on the target having no real way to fight back." "Do we respond?" Devon asked. Mara thought for a moment, then shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "We don't waste words on an ultimatum like that. We show them the answer instead." She turned to the wide bank of screens, showing feeds from bases scattered across the globe, beneath oceans, under mountains, and hidden in the vast, quiet wilderness of places most people on Earth had never even heard of. "Begin threshold protocol," she said. "Open the hangars." Across the planet, in places that had never appeared on any public map or satellite image released to the outside world, massive doors that had remained closed for decades finally began to move. In the mountains of Nevada, a stretch of rock that had looked, for years, like nothing more than an empty ridge, split open along a line so precise it seemed impossible, revealing a hangar large enough to hold an entire city block. Inside, rows of sleek, dark warships sat in perfect formation, their hulls built from materials developed through decades of quiet, careful research. Research that had never been shared with the rest of the galaxy, because sharing it would have meant revealing that it existed at all. Beneath the icy surface of Antarctica, similar doors opened along hidden ridgelines, releasing more ships from bases built using geothermal energy and careful engineering that kept them hidden from every orbital scan ever run by a curious alien visitor. In the deep waters of the Pacific Ocean, enormous underwater hangars unsealed themselves, and submersible launch platforms began rising slowly toward the surface, carrying spacecraft that had been assembled piece by piece over the course of 20 years, using shipping routes and construction schedules carefully disguised as ordinary human commercial activity. And on the far side of the moon, in the very base the Drenari scouts had discovered years earlier, the one dismissed as a small, unfinished research post, new activity stirred. What the Drenari had actually found was only the smallest, oldest, and least important part of a much larger complex buried beneath the lunar surface. The unfinished spacecraft they had seen years ago was not unfinished at all. It had simply been powered down, waiting. Now, it powered up. One by one, from mountains, oceans, deserts, and the surface of the moon, humanity's hidden fleet began to rise. On the bridge of the Talon of Skor, sensors suddenly lit up with a storm of new readings. Vesa stared at her console, her sharp eyes narrowing in confusion. "Commander," she said, her voice tight, "I am detecting a large number of new contacts. Multiple locations. Ships are appearing on our scans that were not there a moment ago." Raxus frowned, stepping toward her station. "Ships? From where?" "Everywhere," Vesa said, her voice rising slightly. "The planet's surface, the moon, even the ocean." "Commander, I am counting." She paused, watching the numbers climb rapidly on her screen. "I am counting over 200 vessels, and the number is still rising." The bridge fell into stunned silence. Raxus stared at the screen, his earlier confidence draining slowly from his face. "That is impossible," he said quietly. "The Council's report said—" "I know what the report said," Vesa snapped, cutting him off for the first time in years of service together. "I also know what my sensors are telling me right now." Raxus straightened, forcing his composure back into place. 12 ships against what appeared to be an entire hidden fleet was not the easy victory he had promised his crew, but he was a Kaldreth commander, bred for war, and Kaldreth did not turn back simply because the enemy had surprised them once. "Whatever they have," Raxus said slowly, "they are still primitive by galactic standards. Numbers alone do not win wars. Hold formation. Charge weapons. If they wish to test the Dominion's strength, we will show them exactly why our species has never lost a war of conquest." Behind him, on the main screen, hundreds of small lights continued rising from the surface of the blue and green planet ahead, gathering slowly into formation, preparing for a battle the galaxy had never expected humanity to be ready for. The Council's registry had called Earth defenseless. The Council's registry was about to be proven completely, spectacularly wrong. Colonel James Okafor sat in the cockpit of his ship, the Meridian, one of 230 vessels, now rising from Earth's surface and gathering into formation above the planet. He had trained for this moment for 11 years, ever since he was recruited straight out of the Air Force, into a program so secret that even his own family believed he worked a quiet desk job at a research facility in Colorado. "Formation check," came the voice of Fleet Commander Aisha Reyes through his headset. She was leading the operation from the flagship, the Horizon, a vessel 3 times the size of any other ship in the fleet, built specifically to coordinate a battle exactly like the one they were about to face. "Meridian, in position," James replied, glancing at the readout in front of him. Around his ship, dozens of others slid into place, their formation forming a wide, curved wall between the approaching Kaldrith fleet and the planet below. "All squadrons report in position," Reyes said a moment later. "Command, this is Reyes. Threshold Protocol fleet is fully deployed and ready." Back in the Nevada Command Center, General Mara Ilyanova watched the formation take shape on the main screen. 230 ships now stood between the Kaldrith fleet and Earth. Not their entire strength, not even close, but more than enough to answer the question the aliens had come to ask. "Send them a message," Mara said. "Keep it simple." A moment later, a short transmission went out toward the Talon of Skor. "This is Earth. Your offer is declined. Leave our system, or we will remove you from it." On the bridge of the Talon of Skor, Raxus Kell read the translated message twice, his jaw tightening. Around him, his crew waited in tense silence, watching the wall of unfamiliar ships forming ahead of them on the main screen. "They dare to threaten us," Raxus muttered. 12 Dominion warships against a swarm of primitive vessels built by a species who couldn't even manage a proper fleet 40 years after first contact. "Commander," Vesa said carefully, "their ship count alone is unusual, and their sudden appearance suggests technology we did not detect in any prior scan. I recommend caution. Perhaps we should return to Dominion space and report this development before engaging." Raxus turned to her sharply. "Return? And tell the Dominion Council that Raxus Kell fled from a planet the Great Galactic Council itself classified as undefended? No. We will not run from a bluff. Numbers mean nothing if their ships lack real armor and real weapons. Launch a probing strike. Send 3 ships forward. Test their defenses. If they crumble as expected, the rest of the fleet will follow, and finish this quickly." 3 Kaldrith warships broke formation and surged forward, weapons charging, engines glowing bright against the black of space. They moved with confidence, expecting the human ships ahead of them to scatter or fold under the pressure of a direct approach, just as smaller, weaker species had done in past conflicts. They did not scatter. Colonel James Okafor watched the 3 enemy ships approach on his display, his hands steady on the controls. "Command, 3 hostiles breaking formation, heading directly for the center of our line." "Copy, Meridian," Reyes said. "Hold position. Let them come to optimal range. Alpha Squadron, prepare interception." James felt his heart pounding, but his training took over, steadying his breathing, sharpening his focus. Around him, 11 other ships from Alpha Squadron shifted slightly, adjusting their formation to receive the incoming enemy vessels. The Kaldrith ships opened fire first, launching a volley of plasma cannon blasts toward the human line. James watched the bright bolts streak across space, and for a brief moment, old instincts from a lifetime spent watching alien war footage during briefings made him flinch, half expecting the shots to tear through his ship's hull like paper. They didn't. Human shielding technology, developed over decades using a combination of borrowed alien theory and homegrown innovation, absorbed the blasts with only minor energy loss. The Meridian's shields flickered but held. Shields holding at 94%, his systems reported calmly. "Return fire," Reyes ordered. James's hands moved across his controls, and the Meridian, along with the rest of Alpha Squadron, opened fire on the 3 approaching Kaldrith ships. Human weapons technology had been built with a single goal in mind for decades: efficiency. Where alien warships often relied on raw power and thick armor, human engineers had focused instead on precision, energy efficiency, and adaptability, squeezing every possible advantage out of limited resources. The results became clear almost immediately. Concentrated fire from 12 human ships tore into the shields of the lead Kaldrith vessel, overwhelming its defenses far faster than its crew expected. Within seconds, the ship's shields collapsed entirely, and a follow-up strike tore a deep gash along its hull. The ship spun off course, venting atmosphere and losing power rapidly. The remaining 2 Kaldrith ships broke off, retreating back toward the main fleet in obvious disarray. On the Talon of Skor, the bridge fell into stunned silence once again. Raxus stared at the screen, watching the crippled ship drift helplessly, its systems failing. "That is..." Vesa started, then stopped, searching for words. "That should not have happened, Commander." Our shields are rated to withstand far heavier fire than what they described in their weapons. Perhaps their weapons are more advanced than our old survey data suggested, Raxus said slowly, his earlier confidence cracking further. Or perhaps, Vesa said quietly, everything we were told about this planet was wrong. Raxus said nothing for a long moment, watching the human fleet hold its formation, disciplined and unbroken, showing no sign of the chaos or panic he had expected from a species with no real military tradition. Recall the damaged ship, he finally said. Full fleet advance. If a probing strike will not work, we will overwhelm them with everything we have. 12 ships against 200 is still a fair fight, if our weapons and armor are truly superior. We test that theory now, fully. Not with 3 ships, but with all of them. Back on Earth, in the Nevada Command Center, General Mara Ilyanova watched the readouts from the brief skirmish with a controlled, careful satisfaction. The crippled Kaldreth ship, the successful defense, the enemy's obvious confusion. It was exactly what Threshold Protocol had been designed to demonstrate. They're regrouping, Devon said, watching the sensor data. Full fleet advance detected. All 12 ships moving toward our formation. They still think they can win this with brute force, Mara said. Get me Fleet Commander Reyes. A moment later, Reyes's voice came through the comm system, calm, despite the tension in the air. Command, this is Reyes. We copy the enemy advance, requesting authorization for full engagement. Mara looked at the screen for a long moment. This was the true test, not the small skirmish that had just occurred, but the first real battle Earth's hidden fleet would ever fight. Everything they had built, every year of secrecy and sacrifice, would be measured in the coming minutes. Authorization granted, Mara said. Show them everything, Commander Reyes. It's time the galaxy learned who we really are. Copy that, Command, Reyes replied. Her voice carried through every ship in the fleet a moment later, steady and clear. All squadrons. This is Fleet Commander Reyes. The enemy is advancing with full force. We hold our line. We protect our planet. And we remind the galaxy exactly why they should never have called us defenseless. Squadrons Alpha through Delta. Prepare for full engagement. Across the fleet, 230 human ships shifted into a new formation, one built through years of simulated battles and careful planning, designed specifically to counter a numerically inferior but heavily armored and armed force like the one approaching. James Okafor watched the 12 Kaldreth warships grow larger on his display as they closed the distance, their weapons charging, their formation tight and disciplined, in the way only a species bred for war could manage. Command, this is Meridian, he said quietly into his comm. We're ready. Copy, Meridian, Reyes replied. Everyone hold. Let them come to us. The two fleets closed the distance between them, one built from decades of secrecy and quiet preparation, the other built from generations of confident conquest. Neither side fully understood yet what the coming battle would prove, but both were about to find out. Somewhere far beyond Earth's solar system, on the distant ring station of Vantor Prime, Counselor Threx Alaman had no idea that the very planet he had confidently declared defenseless just days earlier was, at that very moment, about to fight the first real battle in a story the entire galaxy would soon be talking about. The two fleets met in the open dark above Earth's atmosphere, and for a brief moment, both sides simply watched each other, weapons ready, waiting for the first true clash to begin. Then Raxus Kell gave the order, and the Kaldreth fleet surged forward as one, 12 warships opening fire in a coordinated wave designed to overwhelm any target through sheer concentrated power. Incoming fire! All squadrons! Reyes's voice rang out across the human fleet. Scatter formation Beta, hold formation Alpha, return fire on my mark. James Okafor gripped his controls as bright bolts of plasma streaked toward his squadron. The Meridian banked hard, following the coordinated movement pattern his squadron had drilled 1,000 times in simulation. Around him, human ships shifted and wove through the incoming fire, using speed and precision, instead of heavy armor, to avoid the worst of the enemy's attacks. Mark! Reyes called. 200 human ships answered as one, unleashing a storm of concentrated fire on the lead Kaldreth vessels. Where the aliens fought with raw power, spreading their fire across the widest possible area to catch as many targets as they could, human tactics focused everything on fewer targets at once, overwhelming individual ships' shields before moving to the next. The lead Caldrith cruiser, the one closest to the human line, took the full weight of that concentrated assault. Its shields flared bright, held for several seconds, and then collapsed entirely under the sustained pressure. A second wave of fire tore through its now unprotected hull, and the great warship shuddered, its engines flaring out of control before the entire vessel broke apart in a silent flash of light. On the Talon of Skor, Raxus watched the destruction of one of his ships with a growing sense of disbelief. "That is a Dominion heavy cruiser," he said quietly. "Its shields alone are rated to withstand 3 times what we just saw." "Their tactics are unlike anything in our database," Vesa said, her voice tight with tension, as she worked frantically at her station. "They are not spreading their fire, they are focusing it, ship by ship, overwhelming our defenses, one target at a time. It is inefficient against a large spread formation, but against a smaller, tighter one like ours. It is devastating," Raxus finished for her. Another Caldrith ship shuddered under a second wave of concentrated fire, its shields failing rapidly. Raxus realized, with a cold feeling settling in his chest, that his fleet's tight, disciplined formation, normally a strength against disorganized enemies, had become a weakness against an enemy using tactics specifically designed to punish it. "Break formation," Raxus ordered. "Spread out. Do not let them focus fire on isolated targets." The Caldrith ships scattered, breaking their tight formation and spreading across a wider area of space. It was the right call, tactically, but it came several seconds too late. 2 more of their ships had already taken serious damage, their shields flickering weakly, their weapon systems struggling to maintain full power. The battle raged on, filling the space above Earth with streaks of light and the silent flashes of ships taking damage. James Okafor's hands moved almost on instinct now, guiding the Meridian through a series of tight maneuvers as he and his squadron chased down a wounded Caldrith cruiser that had broken away from the main group. "Meridian, you've got a straggler at your 2 o'clock, came a voice from one of his squadron mates, Lieutenant Sarah Voss, flying the ship Andromeda just off his wing. "Shields are down to 30%, should be an easy kill." "Copy that, Andromeda," James replied. "Let's finish this one and regroup with the main formation." Together, the 2 ships closed in on the wounded Caldrith vessel, weapons firing in tight, precise bursts. The enemy ship tried to maneuver away, but its damaged engines could not match the speed of the 2 smaller, more agile human fighters. Within moments, its shields collapsed entirely, and a final volley from both ships tore through its hull, disabling its weapons and leaving it drifting, powerless, in the dark. "Target neutralized," James reported. "Andromeda, Meridian, returning to main formation." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out again and again. Human ships, smaller and individually less powerful than their Caldrith counterparts, used speed, coordination, and superior tactics to slowly grind down the invading fleet, ship by ship. It was not an easy fight. Several human vessels took serious damage, and a handful were lost entirely, their pilots ejecting into escape pods that were quickly recovered by nearby rescue ships. But the overall pattern of the battle was becoming impossible to deny. By the time 30 minutes had passed, only 5 of the original 12 Caldrith warships remained combat-capable, and all 5 showed heavy damage. On the Talon of Skor, Raxus Kell stared at the tactical display in something close to shock. 7 of his ships were gone, destroyed or disabled beyond any hope of continuing the fight. His remaining 5 ships were scattered, damaged, and struggling to maintain formation under continued human pressure. "Commander," Vesa said, her voice quiet but urgent, "our shields are failing across the fleet. If we continue, we risk losing everything. I recommend immediate withdrawal." Raxus's pride screamed against the idea. A Caldrith commander did not simply withdraw. His entire career, his family's honor, everything he had built over decades of service, told him to press forward, to fight until victory or destruction, whichever came first. But he was also not a fool. He looked at the tactical display one more time, watching the human fleet continue its disciplined, coordinated advance, and understood, finally and completely, that everything the Great Galactic Council had told him about Earth was catastrophically wrong. "Signal full withdrawal," Raxus said, the words tasting bitter as he spoke them. "All remaining ships, retreat to rally point, and prepare for emergency jump." "Yes, Commander," Vesa said, relief clear in her voice despite the circumstances. As the order went out, the 5 surviving Kaldreth ships began pulling back, their weapons falling silent as they focused everything on escape rather than continued attack. In the Nevada Command Center, General Mara Ilyanova watched the enemy retreat begin, her expression carefully controlled despite the quiet relief she felt inside. "They're pulling back," Devon reported. 5 ships remaining, all heavily damaged, moving toward what looks like a rally point for emergency jump. "Do we pursue?" Devon asked. Mara considered this for a long moment. Part of her wanted to press the advantage, to destroy the remaining enemy ships and send an unmistakable message to the galaxy. But she also understood something that many of the galaxy's older, more aggressive powers seemed to have forgotten. Restraint, used at the right moment, could be just as powerful a message as force. "No," she said finally. "Let them go. Commander Reyes, this is command. Hold position. Do not pursue the retreating fleet. Let them leave." Reyes's voice came back a moment later, carrying a hint of surprise. "Copy that command. Holding position. May I ask why?" "Because we're not trying to start a war with the Kaldreth Dominion," Mara said. "We're trying to end the idea that Earth is an easy target. There's a difference. Destroying their retreating fleet proves we can fight. Letting them go proves we're not the aggressors here. Both messages matter." On the main screen, the 5 surviving Kaldreth warships gathered at their rally point, their crews working frantically to stabilize damaged systems enough to make the jump back to Dominion space. Within minutes, they vanished in a brief flash of light, leaving behind the wreckage of 7 destroyed vessels, scattered debris drifting silently in the dark, and a message that would soon travel far beyond the borders of a single system. On the bridge of the badly damaged Talon of Skor, now safely back within Dominion territory, Raxus Kell sat alone in his private quarters, staring at a datapad that displayed the final battle report. 7 ships lost, dozens of crew members killed or missing. A humiliating retreat from a planet the entire galaxy had been told was defenseless. There was a knock at his door. Vesa entered, her expression grim but composed. "The report has already reached Dominion Command," she said. "They will want a full explanation." Raxus nodded slowly. "Tell them the truth," he said. "Tell them Earth deceived every scan, every scout, every report the Great Galactic Council ever produced. Tell them humanity is not what we were told. And tell them," he added, his voice quieter now, "that whatever punishing awaits me for this failure, it is nothing compared to what awaits any power foolish enough to underestimate that planet again." Vesa said nothing for a moment, then nodded and left the room. Far away, on the ring station of Vantor Prime, reports of the battle were already beginning to spread through diplomatic channels, whispered between delegates who could not quite believe what they were reading. A planet classified as having no confirmed defense capability had just destroyed more than half of a Kaldreth Dominion invasion fleet and forced the rest into a full retreat. The Great Galactic Council's registry was about to receive a very urgent update, and the galaxy's understanding of humanity was about to change forever. News of the battle above Earth spread across the galaxy faster than anyone at the Great Galactic Council expected. It started as a quiet report filed by Kaldreth Dominion Command, meant to stay within their own military channels. But information in a galaxy full of traitors, spies, and curious diplomats rarely stays contained for long. Within a week, the story had reached nearly every major species connected to the Council's trade networks. A planet called Earth, classified only days earlier as having no confirmed defense capability, had destroyed 7 Kaldreth warships and forced the remaining 5 into full retreat. On Vantor Prime, the council chamber was louder than it had been in years. "This cannot be accurate," said a delegate from the Threll Concord, a species known for their careful, methodical approach to warfare. "Our own analysts reviewed the Kaldreth combat logs. Human tactical coordination, weapons efficiency, and shielding technology all performed at levels comparable to mid-tier council powers. This is not the profile of a species with, quote, minimal military spending. It appears," said another delegate, a Quest trade representative, "that Earth's true capabilities were deliberately hidden from every survey we conducted over the past 40 years. Councillor Threx Alaman sat at the center of the chamber, his silver eyes fixed on the reports in front of him, saying nothing for a long moment. It was Patoran Vey who finally broke the silence, rising slowly from his seat near the back of the room. "I believe," Praetorin said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "that I raised this exact concern during our last session. I said their industrial output did not match their reported military spending. I said something was being built that we could not see." Threx did not look up from his datapad. "You were not entirely incorrect," he admitted, the words clearly difficult for him to say. "Not entirely incorrect," Torin repeated, allowing himself a small, tired smile. "Counselor, I was completely correct. The only question now is what this council intends to do about it." The chamber erupted into fresh debate, delegates arguing over what Earth's true classification should be, what this meant for the Kaldrith Dominion's reputation, and, most importantly to many of the more cautious species present, what it meant for the future of galactic politics, if a previously unknown power had been quietly building a hidden fleet for decades without anyone noticing. Back on Earth, in the days following the battle, General Mara Ilyanova found herself in a very different kind of meeting, one held not in a hidden command center, but in a public conference room, broadcast to leaders and citizens across the entire planet for the first time in Threshold Protocol's history. The decision had not been easy. For decades, secrecy had been the foundation of Earth's entire defense strategy. But now that the galaxy knew Earth could fight back, continued secrecy no longer served any purpose. It was time. The world's leaders had finally agreed, for humanity to speak for itself. Mara stood before the cameras, her uniform simple, her expression calm. 4 days ago, she said, a fleet from the Kaldrith Dominion entered our solar system and attempted to force the surrender of our planet, following a Galactic Council classification that labeled Earth as having no confirmed defense capability. That classification was incomplete. It was based on what we allowed the galaxy to see, not on what actually exists. She paused, letting the words settle before continuing. For over 40 years, since first contact, humanity has worked in secret to prepare for a future we knew was coming, whether we wanted it or not. We built fleets. We developed technology. We trained pilots, engineers, and soldiers, all in the hope that we would never need to use any of it. 4 days ago, that hope ran out, and we used what we built to defend our home. We won that fight, not because we sought war, but because we refused to be conquered without one. Across the world, and soon across the galaxy, as translated broadcasts spread through diplomatic channels, billions of people, and countless alien observers listened to the same simple message. We are not interested in conquest, Mara continued. We are not interested in taking what belongs to others. But we will no longer hide what we have built, and we will no longer allow any power, great or small, to mistake our quiet nature for weakness. Earth is open for peaceful contact, trade, and cooperation with any species willing to treat us as equals. For anyone considering a different approach, we would ask that you review the Kaldrith Dominion's most recent fleet report first. The message reached the Great Galactic Council within hours, and it forced a conversation the Council had been avoiding for decades. What to do about a species that had proven itself far more capable and far more careful than anyone had realized. Weeks later, a formal delegation from Earth arrived at Vantor Prime for the first time, led not by a soldier, but by a diplomat named Elena Marsh, accompanied by a small honor guard, and notably, Praetorin Vey himself, who had personally requested to escort the human delegation into the chamber. "Ambassador Marsh," Threx Alaman said, greeting her with careful formality as she entered the council chamber. "The council extends its apologies for the inaccuracies in our previous assessment of your world." "Apology accepted, Counselor," Elena said simply. "Though I suspect the real lesson here isn't really about us. It's about assuming you understand a species after only 40 years of watching them from a distance." A murmur of quiet agreement moved through parts of the chamber. Prin, standing near the human delegation, allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. The council's vote that followed was, by galactic standards, remarkably swift. Earth's classification was formally updated. Species designation, human. Threat level, reassessed, significant. Defense capability, confirmed, extensive. More importantly, after a long and occasionally heated debate, the council extended Earth a formal invitation to join as a full member, granting humanity a seat at the table it had spent decades preparing to earn, whether the galaxy had realized it or not. The Caldrith Dominion, for its part, faced serious consequences. Several council members who had long distrusted the Dominion's aggressive expansion used the failed invasion as justification for new trade restrictions and stricter oversight of their military activity near council space. Raxus Kell was quietly removed from active fleet command, though rumors persisted for years that he had privately warned his superiors, again and again, never to underestimate Earth a second time. Back home, in the Nevada Command Center that had, until recently, existed as one of the galaxy's best-kept secrets, General Mara Ilyanova stood with Captain Devon Cho, watching new construction begin on facilities that no longer needed to hide underground. Council membership, Devon said, shaking his head slightly. 40 years of secrecy, and now we're sitting at the same table as the Drenari and the Caldreth. It's not the ending, Mara said. It's the beginning of something much bigger. The galaxy knows what we can do now. That means the easy part, staying hidden, is over. The hard part starts now, proving we can be trusted with what we've built, and proving we can build something even better, without losing who we are. Devon watched the construction crews working below, human engineers now openly collaborating with a small team of Quace advisors sent by Patoran Vey himself, exchanging ideas and technology in a way that would have been unthinkable just a few months earlier. Do you think more powers will try what the Caldreth did? Devon asked. Mara considered the question carefully before answering. Maybe, she said. There will always be someone who thinks strength is the only language worth speaking. But now at least, they'll know exactly what kind of answer they'll get. Above them, in the night sky, a new light moved slowly across the stars, one of Earth's warships, now openly patrolling the edges of the solar system, no longer hidden, no longer disguised, simply present, exactly as it had been all along, waiting only for the day the galaxy would finally understand what it had been looking at the whole time. The galaxy had declared Earth defenseless. Humanity had simply waited for the right moment to prove otherwise.